BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. And today is Thursday, and welcome to the special presentation of Black Box Online Radio. This is another edition of the West Virginia vlogs, where I'm going to be talking to you about the future of this channel, some other things that are going on, as well as just giving you an opportunity to see West Virginia and some of the photographs that are going by on the screen. Firstly, thank you so much to everyone who listened to part one of this. Really, it's just an opportunity to stop by and talk to you guys about Black Box Online Radio. And also, thank you to everyone who has been following along with the Zodiac Monday segment. And a lot of people are giving some very insightful things giving a lot of insightful comments and statements about the Zodiac killer, that mystery, and all of the true crime cases that are connected to that story. And that is something that truly surprised me. Like, well into the case, that there was just this enormous web of true crime stories that was connected to the Zodiac killer mystery. And as we see very clearly with Jack the Ripper, it's the same story. And I covered a lot of those in the past back when I did the Ripper Report. On Wednesdays last year, I used to do the Jack the Ripper Report, which started much like the Zodiac killer segment, where I did the suspect profiles and then I talked about the Ripper communications. Mostly they're just 3 letters that have been attributed to Jack the Ripper that people think might have had a high chance coming from the killer, rather. The Dear Boss letter, the Saucy Jackie postcard, and the From Hell letter. And then I also did an episode on the Openshaw letter, which is an unconfirmed communication. So many parallels and similarities between Jack the Ripper and the Zodiac killer. And after I did the videos on the letters and the suspect profiles, ultimately it just turned into the Jack the Ripper report, where I was talking about many different stories, all under the umbrella term of just Ripperology. But the Jack the Ripper report was rather different than the Zodiac Killer episodes that I've done, like rather different than Zodiac Monday, because there are so many movies that have been made about Jack the Ripper that I would try and include one of them in each of the Ripper reports, and also looking at things like poetry and stories, and just things that I haven't really included in the Zodiac Killer mystery. I think one reason is because some of the Jack the Ripper suspects are very famous poets, most notably Lewis Carroll and Francis Thompson. Francis Thompson might be held as a higher suspect than Lewis Carroll, and this is something that you also see in these high-profile unsolved murder mysteries. Some of the suspects that come about are just taken very seriously, and other suspects are not taken very seriously. And I think there's only a small group of people on the interwebs that would think that Francis Thompson is their top Jack the Ripper suspect, but I found some compelling things about him, and he is the subject of the book Jack the Ripper, The Works of Francis Thompson by Richard Patterson. There's at least one more book that discusses him as a suspect, and it's really one thing that we might never know the truth about. And then last year I had the opportunity to interview Richard Jones, who runs Jack the Ripper Tour, and he just simply said that he's followed the Jack the Ripper case for 42 years, and we will never know the truth. Now, with the Zodiac Killer mystery, we might have the opportunity to know the truth in our lifetimes, and that is something that all of us are hoping for. That is something that all of us would expect should happen. Maybe some types of advances in forensic sciences would allow us to know the truth about the Zodiac Killer, and I can't wait for it, to be honest. It's any of these unsolved mysteries. I want to know the truth. It's not simply enough to try and understand it just in one person's mind. Like, some of the theorists out there have written a book and they have their Zodiac theory, right? That's not enough. I want just the announcement that this is what happened. The case has been solved. The case has been cracked. We have forensic science that is connecting these crimes together and matching them to a single person, or matching the evidence to a single person. That is what I would love to see in my lifetime. And if you would like to follow along with these true crime discussions, you can hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And normally I say that you can go through some of the links in the description box, and one of them is for BuyMeACoffee.com, BuyMeACoffee.com/BlackBoxNet88. That was the donation page for the show. But yesterday I made an announcement on the Black Box Online Radio Facebook page that BuyMeACoffee.com/BlackBoxNet88 has been temporarily frozen. I was looking at the public view of the page. I didn't see anything abnormal, but on my creator's dashboard for the page, it says that it has been temporarily placed under review due to suspicious activity, and they're trying to make sure that nothing fraudulent is going on. And I'm just like, what next? Really, what next? I mean, what kind of suspicious behavior are you looking into? What type of fraudulent behavior are you looking into? I have a YouTube channel, and there's a donation page that's been set up. And if people like the episode, they can put something in the jar. That's it. That's it. That's all that's ever happened through buymeacoffee.com/blackboxnight88. That's all that I ever want to happen. I don't know really what they're expecting to find, but there is a freeze on that, so I don't know what's going to come about in their quote-unquote investigation. But I do have to tell you that as I watch this channel expand and watch the channel grow, there are a lot of headaches that come along the way. I already told you that I made a new account on Google called Switchforce Media, and I was launching a new YouTube channel under that name, and I even made a buymeacoffee.com page for Switchforce Media, which was just going to be a channel that's going to talk about different subjects, Black Box Online Radio for true crime, and Switchforce Media for mostly anything else. And I noticed that, that just got shut down. I said this on a recent Zodiac Monday. The Google address got shut down, the YouTube channel was deleted, and the buymeacoffee.com page for Switchforce Media also was locked. I mean, the only way to get back into it is to receive an email code sent to switchforcemedia@gmail.com, which is no longer operable. So that is all just interconnected. Maybe they saw the two pages coming from the same internet IP address. I'm just guessing or something, and that's why they placed my other account under review. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just in the wrong and I'm doing everything incorrectly or something and I'm dealing with the consequences. No matter what, the internet is incredibly frustrating. I've always just had this overwhelming fascination with life on the internet and how human beings are interacting through cyberspace, and just noticing how so many people are more comfortable interacting in cyberspace. But right now, I have to tell you, it is creating a lot of headaches. But who knows what's going to happen with buymeacoffee.com. I'll keep you guys posted about that in the future, but it's not the biggest deal in the world, because no matter what, Black Box Online Radio is growing, and this channel is doing better than it's ever done before, no matter what happens, with the exception of something like deplatforming, which I sure hope to God doesn't happen. And this channel has come a long way. I used to just put a black box on the screen, and there would literally only be a black box on the screen. That's why it was called Black Box Online Radio. And some of the episodes had just abysmal audio quality, no visuals, and then the audio would just cut in and cut out. And part of me is looking back on that time and just thinking, what on earth was I doing? Why on earth did I create episodes like that? Why on earth did I ever think that that was an acceptable thing to do? And somebody once told me that I'm just having fun with the channel, and that's what it is, and that's the reason. And that never sat too well with me. That never really was something that I could accept or digest, that I was just having fun, because a lot of the things that I talk about on Black Box Online Radio are true crime cases, or there are things like psychology, or just things like human behavior, and that's not necessarily something that people would turn to for fun. I've accepted that there's an entertaining aspect to true crime, psychology, and human behavior, but people also turn to these things not only because they want to learn. And on a previous episode of Black Box Online Radio, I said we have education and we have entertainment, but in the middle there's commentary. Commentary should almost be viewed as its own separate entity, because it's not done purely for entertainment, and it's not even necessarily educational. It's somewhere in between. It's its own separate space, because the difference between commentary and entertainment is, with commentary, you have a responsibility to be accurate. It's not done purely for someone's amusement, and you don't have to care about the facts, and you're not only dealing with fictional characters, although you are sometimes. Like I said, I talked about Jack the Ripper films. One of them was called A Study in the Terror, where Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson are investigating Jack the Ripper. Excellent movie, very, very entertaining, but that is a blend of real-life events with fictional events, and that was a great film because it had, the real life murder victims like Polly Nichols and Annie Chapman, and they're calling them all by their real names, and it is a blend of fact and fiction. And I talked about that in one of the Jack the Ripper reports, and I have a playlist for them if anybody would like to hear. But as far as putting up episodes with a black box on the screen and some lousy audio quality, it didn't sit well with me at this whole concept of you're just having fun with your channel. And somebody sent me a video from the motivational speaker Owen Cook, and they were like, "Hey, you gotta hear this. This guy sucks. He's a clown," or something like that. And I decided to watch it, and actually, I didn't think that it was so bad, but he was talking about the exact concept that I was experiencing, so perhaps I connected with the material. And he said that he had just read a book called Zen and the Art of Archery. And I've actually read this book. I read it back in grad school about 10 years ago, and I didn't remember anything from it. But he said there's something in there where it says that some people focus on the process, and some people focus on the result. And to succeed, you have to focus both on the process and the result. And as I said, Zen and the art of archery, like the archer holding the archer has to hold the bow a certain way, and the archer has to hit the target. But the only thing that I might be able to recall from that book is you shouldn't care if you hit the bullseye or not because it's just nothingness or something like that. And I don't really think that that's the heart and soul of what he was sharing. But as I said, it's been now, oh goodness, 11 years. I mean, I saw that video when it had been 10 years. Now it's 11 years. But that's what stood out to me. That stood out to me. That was my problem. I was only focusing on the process, and I wasn't focusing on the result. And it's not only the black box recordings, even some of the videos that are on my other YouTube channel, AstroPsych 400, that aren't necessarily done in a way that is very visually pleasing, focusing on the process and not the result. But as I said, I've had the opportunity to talk to people about these things, and I've had the opportunity to work on other people's YouTube channels, and we make some videos together. And one time I had the chance to work with someone who was all about the result. All just about, no, this isn't the way I wanted the video to be. I'm deleting it. No, this isn't the way that I wanted the video to be. I'm deleting it. If anybody has seen the show Breaking Bad, they have this scene once where Jesse Pinkman is trying to cook crystal meth, and then he just isn't satisfied with it, so he throws it out. And this other character, Badger's like, "What, dude? I would have smoked that." And he's just trying to cook it, and it's not good enough to his standard, so he's throwing it out. And that's the way that person was acting, except with YouTube videos, making something that wasn't to their desired quality, so they're deleting it. That's only focusing on the result. What do you think it would be like if you had two people working together? You have me who focuses on the process and that person who focuses on the result. We'd be a really good team, right? Wrong. Absolutely not. 100% no. It's just absolute chaos because you have one person going one way and another person going the absolute other way. What's the solution? I've already told you. Both people should be focusing on the process, and both people should be focusing on the result. And I'm at a strange point in my time with Black Box Online Radio because I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I've recorded some things. I've recorded some things for the channel that I haven't aired, and this is one of the first times ever when I've made recordings that I'm just like, I don't want to put this out on Black Box Online Radio because I don't think that it's done to a high enough standard, or I think that it's somewhat of an inferior product, or it's just not something that's going to go over well with the audience. And I guess I'm just caring a little bit more about the result than I did in the past, which is good, right? But I think that it's also just going to require a lot more planning in the future. For the longest time, I didn't want to use any scripts or something. I'm not using any script right now, of course. I think you can tell from the way that I'm talking and the way that the Zodiac Killer news reports have been done, Zodiac Monday, all of that's unscripted. And it's almost always unscripted unless I'm reading somebody's comments or posts or an article or something like that. And I think that it's finally come to the point where I want to explore different ways of creating the content because I don't just want to start rambling and talking in circles and trying to kind of get lost in my own mind for a second and then having to come back on track. As I said in the most recent vlog, I'm all over the place all the time, and in some ways it can be a gift. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. People like teachers or something, when you can go to school, you can be sitting in class, and your mind can be somewhere else. And when you get to adulthood, it's not so bad. You just go to work, you get paid for it, and your mind can be somewhere else. And sometimes your boss will get mad at you, but like, I'm an adult, I don't care. Go ahead, fire me. I'll go work at McDonald's for 3 weeks and then I'll get a new job or something like that. Just go point A to point B to point C. And adulthood definitely has a lot less to deal with the emotional side of things. And I've even heard this from other people when they talk about how children process embarrassment with a different part of the brain than adults. And I haven't even exactly verified that, but that's something that makes perfect sense to me because the things that would have embarrassed me as a kid wouldn't embarrass me as an adult if I'm like spacing out and not paying attention and my coworker or boss were to call me out on that. I wouldn't really care. Yeah, I was, and so what? It's really no big deal. Whereas someone might feel embarrassed about that when they were a kid. So I definitely want to look at more things involving human behavior and psychology for both Black Box Online Radio and AstroPsych 400. AstroPsych 400, of course, has the name Psych, the name for psychology, and I'm starting to put out more content over on that channel, and I invite you to check it out. And I've been reading a book lately that I heard from the previously mentioned Owen Cook's show, and that was one he recommended called The Sociopath Next Door by Dr. Martha Stout. And I think that it shares a lot of connecting points, a lot of things that we understood about sociopathic behavior, criminal behavior, and just flat out dealing with people who are showing indifference to our well being. And all of these things get kind of encapsulated and pushed together into the book, The Sociopath Next Door. And I was just going through some things today, and I think that there is a very big differentiation between all sociopaths and sociopathic serial killers. And a lot of this stuff is explored in the book because it's focusing in on how some people are sociopaths and they go on to become politicians and CEOs and they get married and they have children and they don't kill anyone. There's this whole story in the early part of the book about how there's this guy who's a CEO of a major company. He's very rich. He's married. He has two children. And when he was younger, he used to torture frogs with explosives, but that was mostly the height of his violence to the best of our knowledge. Instead, he just went on to become an affluent businessman. Although there are some downsides to that. It's not just like being a sociopath gave him some type of edge. He doesn't form emotional bonds with his wife. He doesn't form emotional bonds with his kids. He doesn't necessarily care too much about the birth of his children. But at the same time, he's just more or less following certain rules of society to keep himself out of prison, but he is using those rules to his own advantage. And I heard this once on a show, and I don't even want to tell you about this too much, but about that note about how that type of sociopathic thinking, learn the rules of a system and use it to your advantage, right? Right? I mean, that's what somebody said, and that is just crappy thinking in my book. Absolutely no empathy, absolutely no regard for other people. You won't make any friends at all. I mean, how on earth can you be a team player if you're just going to learn the rules of a system and use them to your advantage? Maybe this guy, this CEO that I was just talking about, maybe he didn't care because he's a sociopath and he's just trying to acquire wealth and power for himself and he's a cutthroat businessman and okay, whatever, but if you're actually someone who is even the slightest bit empathetic, learn the rules of a system and use it to your advantage. And to provide some context, the show that I was watching said that there's no reason to vote in an election. It's not going to change anything. Learn the rules of a system and use it to your advantage. That's nonsensical. It's ridiculous. And it's ridiculous for the following reason. When I was growing up, my sister would kind of do that. Like we had this rule in our house, if you are the last person to eat something from the package, you got to throw the box in the trash. Like think of a box of cookies or something like that, or one of those plastic trays of cookies that they sell at the supermarket, right? So what my sister would do is she would eat all the cookies in the box except one and just leave one there so she didn't have to throw it away. That's what that is. Learn the rules of the system and use them to your advantage. It's unfair, it's showing no regard for other people's well-being, and it's also done as a form of power tripping. She knew exactly what she was doing, and then she's just kind of even leaving the box out there with one cookie for everybody to see, so they know exactly what she did. And sociopaths definitely develop this type of manipulative mindset when they just want to control people, they want to control the situations because they're indifferent to the well being. And I'm not saying my sister was a sociopath, I have no idea. As you see, I have some doubts about her um, empathy levels, but I have no idea. And as far as sociopaths that are clinically diagnosed, it just all turns into manipulation, and it all turns into just that concept of trying to interact with people without going to jail unless they want to, but at the same time showing no regard for people's well being. And the YouTube psychologist Dr. Ramani would talk about this when she said that there's a reason why so many sociopaths go on to be CEOs and politicians, where it's okay, we got to close a factory, put 5,000 people out of work just to make a profit for the company. They do it. Don't think twice about it. Or the politician, oh, it's election time, let's start a war and try and sway people's thinking, try and persuade voters to keep a certain politician in office because they don't want to change presidents during a wartime or something like that. So they do it. They start a war. And there is definitely that concept of just showing absolutely no regard for human life. And that's bad. That's bad. I said, even if you have the smallest amount of empathy for people, you would probably not do those things. And I shared this once on one of the old AMA episodes about 2 years ago when I said that I was talking about that video that I had watched from Dr. Ramani about sociopathic behavior, and I said those exact examples. The CEO's like, close the factory, put 5,000 people out of work, our company's now turning a profit. I mean, of course, they're going to do things like outsource to China and Bangladesh and so on. Maybe even in America in a different state or something like that. Maybe they're one of the operations that finds a state with a lower minimum wage and they already have a facility there that can take on more people. I'm just making stuff up at that point. But I was like, okay, so you got the CEO that's going to close the factory, put 5,000 people out of work. You got the politician that's going to start a war to get reelected. And do you think our society rewards sociopathic behavior and tendencies? That's what I asked a family member around Christmas time once. And what she said was, no, I don't think so. And I'm like, why not? And the response was that those things definitely do happen, the examples that you just listed, but does society reward them? No. The CEO that can keep the factory open and still turn a profit is viewed as a better leader. The politician that can get reelected without starting a war and can maintain peace for the country and the world, that person is viewed as a better leader. And I was like, I'm taking it and I'm running with it. This whole thing about learn the rules of a system and use them to your advantage? No, that's ridiculous. That shows no regard for human life. This whole thing about lie, cheat, and steal, just don't get caught. That's just not real life. This whole thing about me, just show absolutely no regard for human well-being as long as you're not breaking the law. That too, that's not real life. Anybody who's doing those things, they're doing something bad. But that's just my take on the subject. And thank you so much for listening to this rambling episode, but I just also wanted to show you some more photos of West Virginia and to check in with you guys, and I'm hoping that Black Box Online Radio is going to be going in a different direction and an upward direction, trying to just put out some more things that I find fascinating, but also put out episodes that I'm also proud of and not just looking back and saying, wow, that is just kind of one weird sounding upload or something. The sound's just bouncing off the walls or the audio is just cutting in and out. I just don't want to do that anymore. And I'm hoping that BuyMeACoffee.com will come back. And I would be only mad about one thing. Let's say, for example, they shut down BuyMeACoffee.com/BlackBoxNet88. I once even talked about moving my show to BuyMeACoffee.com. They have a podcast zone. And I was thinking I'd keep Zodiac Monday and then either 4 days or 6 days a week put out an episode on BuyMeACoffee.com, audio only. I have talked about so many positive things in regards to that website. If they were to shut me down for, well, I mean, I don't even really know what I did. I mean, people just can listen to the show and, as I said, they drop something in the pot, drop something in the jar, and that's all. I don't know what type of operation would be going on that in their minds, but it's not happening. Anyway, so I'm hoping that that'll just be restored and everything will be back to life as normal. Thank you so much for listening to this once again, and you can put something in the comments section down below. Always nice to stop in and just chat with you guys about the channel, what books I'm reading, what videos I've been watching, conversations that I've had. And that's all for me now. I will see you over on Instagram, BlackBoxNet88. You can get me on BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com, BlackBoxOnlineRadio on Facebook. My personal Facebook is also in the description box. And for now, until next time.